The story opens with the protagonist, a man in his late 30s, returning home after a week-long business trip. At first, everything seems normal. The streets are quiet, and the familiar neighborhood welcomes him with a sense of comfort he has known for years. Yet, as he approaches his house, a subtle unease begins to creep in. The front door, normally locked and secure, is slightly ajar. It's a small detail, almost imperceptible, but enough to make his heart quicken. He instinctively senses that something is off, even before he steps inside. As he walks into the house, he is met with silence. The usual sounds of home, a dog barking, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant ticking of a clock, seem muted, almost absent. He calls out for his wife, his voice echoing through the empty space, but no response comes. He checks the living room. The sofa cushions are perfectly aligned, the coffee table untouched. Her favorite coffee mug remains in the sink, a faint residue of her morning ritual still clinging to its surface. These small signs amplify the feeling that the house is wrong, that life has paused in his absence. The protagonist moves through the rooms methodically, his unease growing with each step. He notices details that don't fit: her coat draped unusually on a chair, the bed slightly disheveled in a way that suggests she may have been restless. Even the family dog behaves differently, hiding behind furniture and glancing nervously toward the bedroom. The protagonist's mind races with possibilities. Is she hiding from him? Did something happen while he was away? Each thought is more disturbing than the last, and the tension builds steadily, pulling the reader into the same sense of dread he feels. As he nears the bedroom, the protagonist senses the climax of this part. The hallway leading to the room feels narrower, the light dimmer, shadows stretching unnaturally along the walls. Every step is heavy with anticipation, each creak of the floorboards magnifying the silence. His hand hovers over the doorknob as he gathers the courage to open it, and in this moment, the story lingers on the threshold of revelation. The atmosphere is thick with suspense. The ordinary domestic space is transformed into a stage for fear, mystery, and emotional tension. The first part concludes with him finally reaching the door, fully aware that the answers he seeks lie beyond it. He is on the verge of uncovering the truth about his wife, the nature of her despair, and the secrets she may have been hiding while he was away. This sets the stage for part 2, where the confrontation and revelation occur, ensuring that the reader is emotionally invested and tense, eager to see what awaits him in the bedroom. As the protagonist's hand hovers over the bedroom doorknob, the tension reaches a breaking point. The air feels heavy, almost suffocating, as though the room itself is holding its breath, guarding the secret within. He finally opens the door, and the scene before him is both shocking and heartbreaking. His wife sits on the edge of the bed, her posture rigid, her shoulders drawn inward, and her eyes, those eyes he knows so well, are filled with an unfamiliar emptiness and despair. It is not anger, not sadness, but a profound, hollow dread that seems to consume her from the inside. The initial reaction of the protagonist is disbelief. He instinctively steps closer, reaching out to her, calling her name softly. But she flinches, as though his presence itself is a threat. Her voice, when it comes, is barely audible, and the words she utters are cryptic. "It's too late, I had no choice." She glances away, avoiding his eyes, hinting at a trauma or secret he has no knowledge of. The contrast between her physical presence and the emotional void in her gaze is chilling. This moment establishes the story's emotional core, the dissonance between love, fear, and the unknown forces affecting their lives. Through fragmented flashbacks woven subtly into this part, the reader begins to understand that her despair did not arrive suddenly. Small incidents over the past few weeks, her nervous glances at her phone, late-night absences, uncharacteristic irritability, take on new significance. These moments, previously dismissed by the protagonist as stress or fatigue, now hint at a deeper problem lurking beneath the surface. The narrative builds tension by allowing the audience to piece together clues alongside him, creating an atmosphere of mystery and foreboding. The protagonist's confusion grows as he attempts to probe further. He asks questions, seeks explanations, but she only responds in broken sentences, revealing fragments of a troubling situation without clarifying it. Her references to the choice, or what's coming, suggest that someone or something is pressuring her, perhaps threatening both her safety and their relationship. The ambiguity heightens suspense. Is it a personal betrayal, a psychological struggle, or an external danger? Part 2 ends with the protagonist realizing that her despair is both real and urgent, yet he cannot grasp its full extent. The bedroom, once a place of comfort and intimacy, becomes a theater of uncertainty and fear. This moment transitions the story from quiet tension into active suspense, setting the stage for part 3, where the protagonist begins investigating the cause of her distress. Emotionally, it marks a turning point. He understands that the familiar life he returned to is fractured, and that his wife's despair is a mystery he must unravel to save her, and by extension, their relationship. After the chilling bedroom revelation, the protagonist finds himself caught between fear and determination. He realizes that his wife's despair is not merely emotional, it is tied to something tangible and dangerous that he cannot yet see. Driven by a mixture of love, guilt, and urgency, he begins his investigation, determined to uncover the cause of her suffering. This part of the story shifts the narrative from suspenseful observation to active investigation, deepening both the plot and the emotional stakes. He starts with the familiar, their home. Every detail becomes a potential clue. He searches through her phone, noticing that it is locked behind a password he doesn't know, suggesting she has been hiding something significant. He checks her computer and discovers encrypted files, emails, and messages that hint at a secret life or a hidden threat. Each discovery raises more questions than it answers, increasing his sense of helplessness and dread. The protagonist realizes that the woman he thought he fully knew has layers of complexity he never imagined, and that her despair is rooted in events he had been blind to. The tension escalates when he uncovers signs of external interference. He notices unexplained financial transactions, deliveries with no clear origin, and messages from unknown numbers containing vague threats. Small anomalies, her missing jewelry, unlocked windows, and the disarray in her personal spaces begin to suggest that someone has been watching or manipulating her. The protagonist's fear grows. The threat is not abstract, it is immediate, and it may put both their lives at risk. While investigating, he also pieces together fragments of her recent behavior. Her late-night walks, sudden phone calls, and moments of panic now take on new significance. These behaviors, previously dismissed as stress or fatigue, are now seen as coping mechanisms or responses to an imminent danger. Through these revelations, the narrative explores the duality of her experience: the silent suffering she endured alone and the opaque barrier she erected to protect him from the truth. The protagonist's emotional journey mirrors the unfolding mystery. He feels frustration, confusion, and guilt. Guilt that he did not notice her distress sooner, frustration at the lack of answers, and confusion at the cryptic nature of her messages. These emotions drive him deeper into the investigation, compelling him to look beyond the surface of their domestic life and confront the hidden complexities of her world. Part 3 concludes with a turning point. He receives a direct, ominous communication, perhaps a phone call or a mysterious note, that confirms the danger is real, personal, and time-sensitive. The threat is no longer abstract. It has names, motives, and consequences. The stage is now set for Part 4, where the protagonist will confront the unknown directly, navigating the tension between fear and the desperate need to protect his wife. This part effectively builds suspense, expands the story's mystery, and reinforces the emotional stakes, ensuring the reader is fully invested in both the plot and the characters' inner lives. With the discovery of tangible threats in Part 3, the protagonist is thrust into a tense, high-stakes confrontation with forces he barely understands. This part marks a shift from investigation to direct engagement, where suspense, danger, and emotional intensity peak. The story delves into both external threats and internal dynamics, exploring fear, trust, and the psychological strain on both characters. The part begins with the protagonist attempting to confront his wife about the full nature of the threat. His questions are urgent, sometimes bordering on frustration, as he struggles to piece together her cryptic warnings and fragmented statements. Yet she is defensive and evasive, her responses fragmented, oscillating between fear, guilt, and protective secrecy. She hints at someone from her past, a person or entity whose return threatens not just her but the life they have built together. She speaks of ultimatums, consequences, and dangerous secrets that she kept hidden to shield him. This confrontation forces the protagonist to navigate a delicate emotional balance. He must demand truth without pushing her further into fear. Simultaneously, the external danger begins to make itself known. The protagonist notices signs of surveillance, strange cars near the house, shadows moving across windows, and unusual sounds at night. It becomes clear that the threat is not merely psychological or metaphorical. It is physical, deliberate, and potentially violent. The suspense escalates as the narrative alternates between the domestic space, which should be safe, and the lurking presence of the unknown, which now invades it. As the tension rises, the protagonist begins to understand the stakes. Through fragments of conversations, he learns that his wife has faced coercion or blackmail, possibly involving people from a past she thought was buried. She may have been forced to make morally complex choices, and her despair is compounded by the burden of protecting him. The protagonist's empathy grows, deepening the emotional resonance of the story. He realizes that saving their relationship requires not only confronting the external threat, but also rebuilding trust that has been strained by secrecy and fear. The climax of this part occurs when the danger becomes imminent. Perhaps a shadowy figure appears near the house, or a phone call demands immediate action. The protagonist and his wife are forced to leave their home, abandoning the comfort and security it once represented. The journey out of the familiar environment into uncertainty mirrors their emotional and psychological state. They must navigate both the physical threat and the complex web of secrets that has kept them apart. Part 4 ends with a moment of fragile unity. Though terrified and uncertain, the couple begins to function as a team, understanding that facing the unknown together is their only option. This sets the stage for Part 5, where they must actively escape and confront the forces threatening their lives, blending suspense, action, and emotional intensity. By juxtaposing immediate danger with intimate emotional revelation, Part 4 ensures that the reader remains on edge, fully invested in both the plot and the characters' evolving relationship. Following the intense confrontation with the unknown in Part 4, the protagonist and his wife are forced into immediate action. The sense of danger becomes tangible. The threat is no longer looming but imminent, and their home, their sanctuary, is no longer safe. This part emphasizes high tension, suspenseful pacing, and the emotional strain that accompanies physical flight. The narrative shifts to motion, both literally as they navigate through unfamiliar terrain, and emotionally as they confront fears and hidden truths. The escape begins in a chaotic rush. The couple gathers only essentials, leaving behind the trappings of domestic comfort as the threat, perhaps a shadowy figure or an unknown pursuer, makes itself felt in increasingly aggressive ways. The tension is amplified by the unknown. Every sound, every movement outside the vehicle or along the deserted roads could signal danger. The narrative often cuts between their attempts to flee and the unseen force pursuing them, creating a cinematic, edge-of-your-seat experience for the reader. During the journey, the protagonist begins to uncover more of his wife's hidden past. Between bursts of panic and fleeting moments of quiet, she reveals fragments of her life that had been carefully concealed. Perhaps there was a traumatic incident she never shared, a dangerous individual she crossed, or a secret she bore alone to protect him. These revelations are emotionally charged, forcing the protagonist to reconcile his love for her with the shock of discovering a version of her life he never knew. Their dialogue is raw, tense, and filled with moments of vulnerability, highlighting how fear and trust are intertwined in crises. The escape also tests their practical abilities. They navigate backroads, avoid surveillance, and improvise safe routes, highlighting the real-world stakes of their situation. These sequences emphasize suspense through uncertainty. Every turn could bring safety or new danger. Their survival relies not only on luck, but also on their growing ability to work together under pressure. The narrative emphasizes how fear can be both paralyzing and clarifying, stripping away pretense and revealing the core of their relationship. Amid the chaos, emotional tension continues to build. The protagonist wrestles with guilt over not noticing her distress sooner, while the wife grapples with fear, shame, and the relief of finally sharing her burden. These moments of intimacy amidst danger serve as a counterpoint to the suspense, enriching the story with human depth. The reader experiences both the adrenaline of the chase and the psychological weight of trust, secrecy, and revelation. Part 5 concludes with a tense standoff or near capture, forcing them to make a critical decision: confront the threat directly, continue fleeing, or find a temporary safe haven. This cliffhanger propels the story into Part 6, where the ultimate resolution and revelation will occur. The narrative successfully balances action, suspense, and emotional resonance, ensuring that the reader remains fully engaged while the stakes, both physical and emotional, reach their peak. The final part of the story reaches its emotional and narrative climax, bringing the tension, suspense, and hidden truths of the preceding parts to a head. The protagonist and his wife, having escaped immediate danger in Part 5, now confront the source of her despair directly. This part balances high-stakes action with deep emotional resolution, tying together the psychological, relational, and external threads of the story. The section opens with the couple in a precarious location, perhaps a secluded safe house, a deserted building, or a remote area where they can face their pursuer without endangering innocence. The antagonist, whether a person from the wife's past, a manipulative figure, or a threatening organization, is revealed in full, with motives and methods finally clarified. This revelation explains the cryptic warnings and fragmented behavior the wife exhibited throughout the story. The danger that has been looming as an abstract fear is made concrete, and the protagonist understands the stakes. It is not just her life that is at risk, but the life of their shared future. During this confrontation, the emotional core of the story takes center stage. The wife explains her hidden past and the impossible choices she had to make, shedding light on the despair that haunted her eyes. Perhaps she faced coercion, blackmail, or moral compromises that she never disclosed, believing that the burden of secrecy would protect her husband. The protagonist experiences a mixture of relief, sorrow, and anger as he processes the truth, but ultimately, their shared love and trust provide the foundation for a united front. The narrative emphasizes the theme of partnership and mutual reliance. They are strongest when confronting adversity together. The climax unfolds as the couple must act decisively. They devise a plan, strategic, daring, and resourceful, to neutralize the threat. This could involve exposing the antagonist, leveraging their knowledge of the threat's weaknesses, or outsmarting them through psychological and physical means. The tension is heightened through detailed sequences of action, close calls, clever maneuvers, and moments where failure seems imminent. These sequences are interwoven with emotional beats, showing that courage is not only physical but also moral and relational. Once the immediate threat is resolved, the narrative shifts to emotional resolution. The wife's eyes, once hollow with despair, now reflect relief, gratitude, and renewed connection. The protagonist and his wife reconcile fully, their relationship strengthened by surviving both external danger and internal fear. The story underscores the transformative power of vulnerability, honesty, and partnership. They return home, not naively, but cautiously aware of lingering risks, yet fortified by trust and understanding. The story closes on a poignant note. A home once tainted by fear is now a space of cautious hope. The lingering tension of previous events gives way to emotional catharsis, providing closure for both characters and the reader. Part 6 successfully ties together suspense, revelation, and emotional depth, leaving the audience satisfied with a resolution that honors both plot and character development.